It is the return of I, Underwood, the avatar of RPG. Now, what I'm going to be talking about today is monsters and the magic experience point bubble. Stop doing that! If you do that, do not do that. It is one of the absolute worst mistakes that you can make. And a number of game systems engineer their style of play towards the magic experience point bubble. This plays like a fucking video game. That is not good. If your game looks like a video game, not good. I'm not talking about the elaborate story aspects of something like Baldur's Gate. I'm talking about running around and hacking things at experience number 72 points, 14 points, 4 points. That is not what you want to get across. When you have an encounter, the character should be looking at the entity, at the individual before them, and sorting them out, and trying to decide, what is this? How do I deal with this individual or entity or group? Not the romanticized combat that you see. It does not work well if you have that mood and style and tone. Okay, change it up and try dirty, dark, grueling, brutal, scary, terrifying combat. I will tell you this, if you ever play in one of my games, you are not going to want to fight the monsters because monsters do terrible things to you. It's gloves off with me. A monster will rip you apart, will rip your body parts off and start savaging you, start eating you. You might have somehow survived, but intestines are coming out, punctured with feces coming through them, or you've had your arm eaten off or your leg. Monsters aren't trying to damage you, knock you down, and no, they are trying to fucking eat you, or they're trying to kill you. Some of them might rape you. Really bad things will happen. Monsters should be portrayed in this because they are monsters. I come with the gloves off. I come with dark intentions, with evil on the mind. If that is the mind of the monster, portray that mind. Don't play a sanitized, romantic version. You cheapen your game. You cheapen your experience. You cheapen your characters' level of immersion because they aren't afraid. My players in my game are afraid of the monsters because they know really bad things can happen to them and will. So it comes down to a decision. But at the same time, the monsters don't charge up on groups. If there's caravans and such down the road, why would the monster attack a band of 6 incredibly well-heavied, heavily armored, weaponed individuals that might clearly be able to kill them when they could just pick off some peasants and eat their bones or steal their treasure, their textiles, their pigs, whatever it is? The party doesn't have those sort of things. Goblins aren't running around trying to get +5 swords. That's not what they're about, and they're certainly not trying to get killed. So if you have a modicum of intelligence in your individual or entity, play it accordingly. Have a reason why it attack. Don't ever have monsters attack so that the party can get experience points, because you devalue the monsters. You devalue the encounter. You make the players look at them and go, another combat. Roll. I got an 8 for initiative. What'd you get? A 7? Okay, I guess I go first. Okay, what are there? Oh, there's some dog things. I'll just attack them. I don't care. They don't scare me. They'll befront me. I know I'm going to win, so why care? But when the characters have to actually think about it, look in the situation and go, well, they might be more powerful. They might be able to sort me out. So maybe I'm going to engage in diplomacy. Maybe I'm going to succumb to the threat. You can have monsters threaten and say, oh, you need to give me this. You need to pay me. Because the monster might not want to fight them either. Fighting a heavily armored and armed individual, if you could just extort them and get something out of them, why not go that route? Or maybe both parties just come together accidentally out in the woods and like, let's not do this. But it may be the monster, the NPC, the antagonist brings a level of intimidation, of ferocity, and then you can bring it back again, and maybe the third encounter, then you have it pop off. But, that tension, and then, it kind of goes off, and they're like, oh, I think might come back and get us. Particularly when you run monsters not just as, one of the things in 3.5 that just, in 3.0 as well, just infuriated me is the way they described the encounter. Well, you should probably lose like 25% of their hit points and stuff. No, if you have one encounter, you may well damn get killed. You will get beat down. from the feet down. You understand you're going to get put on your back, Jack. That's just how it goes down. Because monsters aren't there to appease your ego, to satiate you. They need to be scary. They don't need to be experience point bubbles. But characters don't need to look at them as a stat block. When you have stat blocks interacting with them, they won't enjoy that. And when they don't enjoy that, that's when you're just, oh, I miss, I don't like it. That kind of combat. No one wants that stagnant, booty-ass combat. They were not entertained by that. No one is. No one is. But when you have them in the palm of your hand, when they're sitting up there. That's what I know when I got my players, when they're sitting up on the seats and they're kind of thinking, oh, man, my employer said, oh, this was a bad idea. Bring things in like parlaying, like diplomacy. When you can speak the language of the goblins, maybe you could talk them out. Hell, you might be able to browbeat them down. You're just bad, bully, intimidating character. Maybe you could beat down mentally 14 goblins. And they're like, oh, maybe we don't want to do this. And the goblins, reluctantly come away. But you have that, they say, yeah. When you put that together, man, it goes, and you get them up there, like, all of a sudden it's just about to break out, but then maybe it doesn't. Maybe, but you need to have players educated. It's about educating your characters. If you educate your players, not characters, but players, in a fashion that they can expect to just go over. They're just going to Goldberg everything. Spear, jackhammer, gun. They're going to spear, jackhammer everything, and they go, why did they attack the dragon? It was 5 ECL clicks higher than them. They've been told to attack everything in front of them. It's killed. It's for magic items, for experience. It's done. But when they actually look at things in terms of really, if it was real, would you sit there and just run at a Manticore and smack the Manticore in the face? You would be scared to death of a Manticore. It's like 11 foot long with poisonous spikes and leathery bat wings and a huge dwarven or like lion, tiger type face, depending on what kind of Manticore you're using. That is a horrific sort of entity. And that's only the tip of the iceberg. There's so many more gruesome, ridiculous creatures. It's bad enough in the real world against humans and with guns and with swords through the ages, the kind of war. These things are scary. Going into trenches, going into war, that scares the hell out of seasoned individuals. Now, your characters are seasoned, your characters are heroic, but you're not even fighting other people. You're fighting inhuman terrors. How much scarier is a rolling pool of ooze than a man with a gun? That pool of ooze can't. What do you do? You know what I do in every game I see a pool of ooze? I run from it. I sell. Because in character, I can't think of a way I would fight some ooze. I don't know how to fight no damn ooze. That is like an oil slick that wants to eat you. How do you fight that? You run. You run and pray you run faster than at least another party member. You maybe trip somebody. That's how I'm going to do it. And that's how I do it over and over again. When you put yourself into the sense of, not, this is an 8 hit point zombie. Oh shit, that's undead creature in front of me. You're going to have it. And that's, as a game master, it comes down to you. You have to educate them. And sometimes that means put the beat down on them. And when I look at my players and I'll tell them, you need to sell, because I will keep cranking that dial up. And you will be the one that breaks. I will guarantee you that. It's just like the rack. How much pressure can you take? Maybe you understand. But you get them eventually really customize that style of play where they're not just lunging in. And I know a lot of game masters out there because I get questions all the time. I'll get 4 or 5 every single day. I know it takes me a while sometimes to get back to people because they'll be long. It's like paragraphs. I'm like, all right. I'll try, to get to them. But they're always asking me, all sorts of different questions. But it really comes down to make it real. In a real scenario, you're not like, let's attack the Manticore. Why? But doesn't he have a wand? The Manticore don't have no wands on it. Come on now, fool. What are you going to attack a Manticore for? It's a Manticore. You don't want to attack that. That's like, I could get killed. That's pretty much what you should be thinking. We get this. Let's get away from this Manticore. Let's not fight that. I remember I played in a terrible booty game one time. It was Greyhawk. There was a 3.0 version or 3.5 version of Encounters. I don't know what that was called. Living Greyhawk is what it's called. It was atrocious. And they had these modules written. And there's this part in one module where apparently you were supposed to fight a badger. Your first level characters, and you were supposed to fight a badger. Well, I probably didn't fight a badger because, let's face it, the Droobs there immediately were just listening to what I was doing because I was role playing, so they were all just coming around me like they'd never seen. They had never seen role playing like that. Let's just be honest about it. So, they have this encounter like a badger. Oh, you saw a badger. Like, you're supposed to run in and attack it. What fool would do that? Why would you run in and attack a badger? You saw a badger on the woods. Like, badgers are vicious. I just walk around it. I just, take a nice long loop. And the game master looked at me like he had never, like, that idea blew his mind. he was like, oh, I guess you guys get experience for defeating it. Fuck defeat! We walked around. It's no defeat. It wasn't even a draw. It was like a no contest. There was no encounter to be had. But we got experience for it because the module calls for you to fight, kill a badger, and not being a moron, I just walked around it because what possible dumbass would attack a badger? You're gonna run around through the woods, and be like, badger, 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 mushroom, mushroom. It doesn't make any damn bit of sense. And I'm gonna make sense. So it really comes down to that. Think about it, man, and make it make sense. Make the party think about it. Make it look at this thing and go, oh man, all right, we might be able to kill that, but it might kill one of us, or it might rip my arm off, and then I'll be down an arm. That's not jacking me. I don't want to be down an arm. You know, in the very least, a manticore just snapping down your arm, and just think about how horrible it is. It just make your combat descriptions like that. It all really comes down to that vivid feel of horror in combat and describing what happens to the teeth, just raking against the flesh, and the little bits of sinew and the yellowish fatty cells are spilling out of your arm, and you can look through it and see those holes in your arm where the scar tissue and the blood and the yellowy fat is inside because the manticore has just rended you and just ripped you to pieces. When the players get indoctrinated into that style of play, they're not going to be going, attack, and, well, I still have 1 hit point. I'm fine. I'll run around with cartwheels with 1 hit point. No, dude, at 1 hit point, you're like, oh, my ribs are broken. Oh, God, I can't breathe. You're like practically just falling on the ground. Like, you've been beat seriously. So you got like 75 hit points, you're down to 1. You have got your ass whooped. And that should be reflected. I mean, your broken bones are battered, you're black and blue, you know, snot's running out of your nose, you're probably bleary from the beating you've taken. And you bring all that into it. You role play that, you sell that. You look at the monster and go, I don't want to die. People, as you often play characters in role-playing games, and this isn't just any particular role-playing game. I goes all over the board. I've seen it in Cyberpunk, in Risk of Shadowrun, in World of Darkness, in Call of Cthulhu. I've seen it in Dungeons & Dragons. I've seen it in Warhammer. I've seen it in all kinds of different games. It probably has happened in damn near every kind of game there is. So keep that in mind at all times. Individuals essentially just do not sell, and it's often the fault of the game master when you make them aware that these monsters are terrible things, that these encounters can go in other directions. You can speak with them. You may be able to talk to them. You might be able to come out with an ally or an uneasy understanding. Like, you had to go back through the woods, right? And now, like the dark druids or like the dark knoll druids are like, but like you kind of like worked it out. Like you ain't boys with him, right? You're like, oh, I think he probably performing human sacrifice over there. That really aren't our problem. So, you know, he does let us come through. That's like the 3rd time we've seen him. You know, he don't want us to burn the woods down because, I mean, he needs these woods so we can perform this profane ritual. But we're kind of cool. And that's, you know, a problem. A lot of times people, they want to 0 to 10 it. But you could be kind of cool. You could be like, well, yeah, I mean, that guy's a dick, but we have other issues. We have other repetitive to attend to today, baby. There's pain, bruise, and agony to be put upon other man in the form of some clubber. And I'm talking about 4/5 and a 20, I understand. But it's really the gist of what I'm saying. Think about the monsters, the opponents in front of you as a real situation. What's really happening? What are you going to try to do? Are you going to try to talk? You know, me in real life, you know, I've worked security. I've worked with the police department. I've done lots of different things in that vein. And I've never just pulled a gun out. I never just pulled a mace out. I never just pulled a baton out. I never just pulled a 4-hour shiver out. You understand? I have to speak with an individual first. You understand? To try to dialogue, to talk. Look at even a damn comic book. They start parlaying. They start monologuing and dialoguing and all sorts of interaction before they begin to go to that combat. It should be something, and you build it up more, it means more. It's more important. It adds flavor and texture to the game, to the combat. And you're like, oh, okay, we talked all that smack, or we try to talk our way out of it, or maybe the opponents try to talk their way out of it. But, you know, the party eventually, things broke down. They weren't able to come up with it. To come up with creative solutions in your encounters. An encounter does not need to be resolved by violence. It can be resolved in all sorts of different ways. And the party should not just come up against things that are tailor-made for them to just hit like they were a squash guy at WWF circa 1989. they might have a damn main event. They might have a main eventer against them, and they might be the squash guys. Like, oh no. Oh no, I'm Mike Sharp. I'm not finna have Hulk Hogan drop the leg on me. That's not what I'm entertained by. This is bad. It's way out of my area of expertise. So it can sculpt and style, and then you can bring it back in a role-playing game. If the first level characters mouth off to that, polymorph blue dragon in front of them and just smack him in the mouth. All right, you got to smack him in the mouth, but guess what happens next round? It might not go so well for you. But even if you had that understanding, and he's trying to use you, manipulate you for his own means, you can build it up. You can build it up for a whole campaign. Give the Game Master stuff to work with. Don't scorch earth it. Make it so the Game Master can bring things back. It makes it easier for him to run the game. Doesn't need to be creature of the week. That's a weak style of running. When you can bring those things back and you're like, oh, well, we beat you down, but you got away. Or, oh, man, we just crawled out with our lives, but this time, we're going to get back to you. Or maybe you're just like, oh, you beat us down. Now we learned a lesson. We respect you. We're not just going to run off at the mouth at you anymore. We're going to come and show you your proper accolades, give you those kudos and credentials that you deserve by your standing, station, and potence. Think about all that. Bring it in. Weave it into the game. Don't just make an experience point bubble over your monsters. Monsters, NPCs, encounters are not there to be killed. They're there to entertain, to tell a story, to be able to bring the aspects of your character over. You can mirror. You can do so much with your characters. You sit there and soliloquy off the monsters and say, oh, well, this reminds me of when this happened when I was a kid, or this other adventure that we had earlier. I see the correlations, the parallels, and so forth. And when you bring all that together, you can really tie a tight weave of story. Hacking through monsters isn't fun for anybody. It's not role-playing. You are not playing a role-playing game. You're rolling dice and aggravating me. That's all you're doing right now. When you advance to a level of sophistication beyond that basic 12-year-old, 10-year-old style of cut down. Hell, I didn't even play that when I was 10 when I started playing games. There was not much, but there was some role playing, there was some texture, there was some stuff in there. So when you have that in your game, when the threat is real, the threat is more dangerous. When the threat can be dissolved in other ways, other skills become more important. Other aspects of the character become important. The charisma becomes important. The entire backstory of the character can be very interesting. Like, oh, well, my character when he was young was beat down by drow elves. I'm like, oh, the drow elves, and you're all like selling and you're scared. You don't want a piece of drow elves, so that could be something that can really add a lot. When you don't think of monsters, when you don't think of encounters, it's just a cheap way to get gold bullion, to get magic items, and to get experience points. What you can get out of them is fun, is role-playing, is excitement, is memories. Think about it, man.